Good evening. I am Fernanda Goulart, and today I am presenting our research co-designing healthcare buildings for people with psychological distress, considering the contributions from every user. This research is being developed by me and my supervisor, Professor Dr. Rosalia Ono, and we are both from the Faculty of Architecture and Urbanism of the University of São Paulo. The research is fully funded by FAPESP, which is São Paulo's state funding agency. Well, mental health care facilities are places where the mentally distressed can seek psychiatric care through tailored program, which includes sporadic appointments with doctors and psychiatrists, group therapy, or comprehensive care for those in extreme vulnerability. They are extremely complex buildings that should be built in a way that facilitates the work of caregivers and support patients' physical and cognitive deficiencies. Those buildings should have spaces that promote social interaction among patients and other patients, but also among patients and caregivers and members of the community spaces. It should have a welcoming atmosphere in which people would feel comfortable inside the building, and also both outdoor spaces that so we could for specialized therapeutic activities such as therapeutic gardening, meditation spaces, art rooms, libraries, places for physical exercises, and so on. So therefore, mental health care facilities should have a wider range of diversity of spaces. Also, it's important to point out that within a mental health care buildings, patients might feel a little bit stressed and undergo some unpleasant situations which are related to their illnesses. Therefore, it also is important to have a design in which patients have more freedom to regulate their personal space. So this person can have the opportunity from withdrawal into seclusion whenever they feel overwhelmed, tired, or unwell, thus avoiding misunderstanding with colleagues and the health team. So it's important, it's related to the idea of diversity of spaces. So we should have both restorative, secluded, quiet spaces, but also active spaces, interesting spaces for people seeking something to do to keep their mind occupied. So I briefly explained how complex mental health care buildings are. In order to design it properly, it's important to include end users into the decision-making activities, which means we should talk to the people that both work, live, and are using those spaces and understand what is it that they need and what would make their life better within a mental health care facility. So there are some challenges in implementing co-designing into a mental health care facility. Overall, and this is valid for every co-designing activity, lay people, they may not understand technical documents and have some difficulty to concisely express their impressions. Sometimes lay people look at a technical architectural blueprint. They might have an idea of what's happening there, but they cannot envision how the building is going to be when it's actually built. So this misunderstanding makes communication difficult within architects and lay people. And also, and this is in the case of mental health care facilities, architects, they tend to believe, they have this prejudice that lay people, particularly patients and especially mental health care patients, will lack creative insights, creative ideas on how we should build a building. We looked into the literature and couldn't find any study that explores using co-creation framework to accommodate mental health care workers and patients' opinions in the design process. So this is what we're going to explore in this research. The co-creation framework that we are using, it's called the Participatory Prototyping Cycle. It was developed by Professor Sanders and her team, and it consists of using a variety of instruments and methods in order to accommodate participants with different capabilities. So some people are better at telling what they are experiencing. Some people are better at making things, making drawings and prototyping, and other people are better at acting, of playing as if, seeing themselves in a different situation and act accordingly. So people have different capabilities, and this PPC was designed in order to accommodate all of them. For this research, the PPC that we have developed was called Dream CAPS. CAPS are, in Portuguese, Centros de Atenção Psicossociais, and they are mental health facilities here in Brazil. At first, people should handle a small-scale physical model that was entirely customizable. We had a lot of settings of furniture. I'm showing some examples here of small furnitures, or even trees, vegetations, a lot of elements that you could put in this physical model and design your own CAPS. We had a prompt question, which was, how would you design an ideal CAPS for you or for your team? And this instrument was used in order to accommodate people that have both making and acting capabilities. The second phase of the PPC were the illustrated cards, in which we showed pictures of mental health care facilities both in Brazil as worldwide, and people should say, we had a prompt question which was, would this room function in a CAPS? How does it make you feel? And then people would tell their opinion about it, and also acting as if they were inside those places. What would it make them feel? No? We went to 3 different psychosocial care centers to make the CCP with the participants. Psychosocial care centers are the CAPS. Each CAPS was situated in a different neighborhood with different socio-economic situations and socio-economic conditions. And overall, we had 31 participants, 10 patients, and 10 mental health care workers. And we are just beginning to analyze the results. We collected a huge amount of data, but there are some things that we can talk about this experience. Firstly, Codesigning is a promising tool for facilitating communication between users and architects. It helped us to keep the conversation on the topic. The conversation went smoothly. The participants were very much engaged in the activity. They enjoyed overall working with the 3D model and talking about how they feel about the pictures. And it was a nice experience, a good instrument to discuss several aspects of the physical environment. Further about the results, here is about the illustrated cards. Usually, patients and workers had similar opinions towards the building. We found out that images of mental health care facilities with no color at all, with blank walls and white furniture, very few decorative elements, were very much disliked, especially by patients, while pictures of places with a lot of things going on, with a lot of furniture, with what we call a home-like environment, which was wooden furniture, sofas, decoration, wallpapers, and such, was very much liked by both patients and workers. So this was the PPC activity. The participant is explaining to me the design process and why she chose to make these designs. She's talking about her considerations about the built environment, what she likes and what she dislikes in a mental health care unity. So there was no such thing as the people lacking creative insight. So the participants, both patients and mental health care workers, were capable of designing and creating spaces that would work for them, that would make them feel good. So overall, the participants, they would use the CCP to express themselves, to express their idea of the CAPS environment, and to give a bit of food for thought for me as an architect of what is the daily life within a CAPS, which are the challenges that they experience. Here, for example, there's this psychologist that was designing a bedroom, and she chose to use mostly residential furniture, wooden floors, and at some point she explained to me that when the CAPS adopts a type of residential decoration, it affects the patient's willingness to be there, because many patients, especially young people, come with the fantasy that they will arrive here to be tied up. So in her experience, sometimes it was hard to convince new patients to stay in the facility because they had this fixed idea of the old mental asylum, this old idea of psychiatric treatment, and they were afraid that this would happen to them at a CAPS. So she was using architecture in order to make the CAPS feel safe, feel home-like, feel comfortable, also to convince new people to stay there. This was another experience. This patient, male patient, an elder, he wanted to put as many beds as possible within the bedroom. In his opinion, because in his opinion, the CAPS had a good service. It was a very good service, and it should offer the service to as many people as possible. So at some point, like he was putting the furniture, at some point he realized, he said, "Oh, no, tell me, would you like to sleep looking at another person? You are here, the other person next to you, but it should be at a large distance, you see." So the CCP helped him to express a situation that he was living inside the facility, and that was unpleasant to him to sleep looking at another person. So together we tried to figure out solutions for that, and maybe putting furniture in between the beds so people could not look at each other. So kind of just protecting the pillow area was a way to handle this situation. So overall, the contribution of this research is that, well, it helps to enhance the environmental quality of mental health care facilities by developing a co-designing framework that works properly for participatory project in this context. Further, it also helps architects designing spaces that promote the well-being of patients and caregivers. There are, however, some limitations. Firstly, to be successful, these co-designing activities need to be flexible. The daily life within a mental health care facility is pretty intense. During the CCP would last over 1 hour, and during the activity, quite often nurses and healthcare workers in general had to interrupt the session in order to attend to a patient that was needing them. So there was a need of some flexibility. Or patients also, they would feel unwell at some point. They wanted to stop a little bit, to continue later. So there was this need to be very flexible about timing and scheduling the activities. Also, greater emphasis must be placed on listening to the patients. They have creativity, they have a lot to contribute to the design process, and their voice must be heard in every situation, but in co-designing activity as well. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you and talk a bit about this research. If you have further questions or would like to see more pictures or information about this method that we are developing, feel free to contact me. I am very glad to be here, and thank you once again.